Boom! We're back. And today we're finishing up the tournament series for Bath Salt's Ben. This will also be the last video of him on the channel, except for the rare occasions when I can film him at other events, or potentially at new gyms. Let's just enjoy the content we have left with Ben.
Ben starts off by amping himself up because if he wins this, he gets to go to the bronze medal match. They shake hands and Ben quickly decides he's going to copy his opponent's stance. They both have their elbows in tight so they won't be able to get arm dragged, but their stance is so high that I wouldn't be surprised to see a double or a single leg takedown. Both men are trying to get a collar tie on their opponent so they can start snapping them down and controlling their posture. But his opponent seems a little bit better about it. He snaps the head down and he's able to quickly get to Ben's back, and he turns him all the way down to the mat to secure the takedown. Ben is stuck on his side and he needs to start bringing his knees and hands in. Once he can get into a ball, he can create a defensive shell so his opponent won't be able to go for a Darce choke. Instead, we see that Ben's going to go belly down, but by doing this, his opponent can quickly turn to his back and he takes back mount. I love how aggressive his opponent is being by going for these strong cross faces when he's on Ben's back. It's a great way to try and pry someone open, and by Ben going to his knees, this is going to give his opponent space to try and bring the hooks in. He has also kept control over Ben's left arm the entire time, giving him a lot of extra control by maintaining the gift wrap. Now Ben doesn't want to be flattened out with hooks in, so he goes towards his side. This can give him the opportunity to spin out, but as he tries to go for the spin, his opponent is quick to follow him. He even disengages his left hook so he can have a better ride over Ben to stop all his frantic running. We also see a new submission attempt by Ben as he's trying to ram his forehead into the wrist, maybe going for a type of wrist slicer with his forehead. And to the surprise of no one, the submission attempt did not work, and his opponent instead decided to drag him down to the mat as he's opening up for the next attack. Ben attempts a last-ditch effort to escape this back control by launching himself forward. Unfortunately, he just gave his opponent complete back control, and by going belly up with both hooks in, it's going to be tough for him to try and escape this back control. His opponent then sweetens the deal by going for a body lock over Ben. And to make things worse, Ben has been put in a body triangle, which is going to be tough to escape, especially when there's one arm under your neck. Ben's trying as hard as he can to try and fight the hands by pushing against the elbow, pulling the top hand down, but everything is starting to go dark for Ben. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to escape this rear naked choke, and he ended up tapping, but just a little bit too late. It only took him about 1 second to rise from the dead because he was aware that he had to tap, he just needed to be a little bit quicker with it. We even see some great sportsmanship from the two of them. And while Ben didn't get a chance to go for the bronze medal in the absolute division, this wasn't going to stop him from trying to get one in Yeski. The stand-up grips are so important in the gi that I'm glad that Ben's keeping his arms back and trying to have the better grip before he goes in. But his opponent must have a hot date because he has no time for that, grabs Ben and completely tosses him to the ground like he's manhandling a young child. That's some serious power because he didn't even hit the trip, he just pulled Ben and Ben completely flopped over. I would not want to be on the other end of that takedown. And it doesn't surprise me that Ben's not moving very much because I definitely want to be collecting my thoughts on how I should proceed with the match after getting tossed so easily by this guy. But his opponent makes a big mistake by rolling him to his side. Generally this would be a good technique, but Ben isn't any mere mortal. He has a different power source, and by having somebody on his back, especially when he gets to wear his favorite gi, he gets a power boost. Ben's yoga classes are starting to pay off as he's able to contort his upper body in an interesting way to try and turn into his opponent's guard. But his opponent still has control over the left arm, so he's able to use this as a climbing route so he can regain back control over Ben. Then Ben shows off some pretty good IQ as he turns to the back, fakes it, then spins into guard. But what I want to see from Ben is that he can control his own posture. When your opponent is able to pull you down and control the back of your neck, it makes it really difficult to set up any guard passes. This is because you have so many threats against you, and it's tough to move if you can't control your own posture. By giving them complete control over your arm, you're in constant danger of the armbar, kimura, triangle, and other attacks, and if your neck is pulled down, you can only look at pressure passing, which is going to be tough to do if their guard is locked. Now Ben let his opponent control his arm for too long, and now his opponent is passing his chest over the arm and he's starting to work towards the back. It's pretty tough to try and recover your arm from here other than just sitting backwards and slowly shimmying your arm back in. Unfortunately, Ben is driving too far forward, and this allows his opponent to hit a nice flower sweep and pull him right into mount. Then Ben decides to gift him back control by turning to his belly once again. Now turning to your side is the right call, but Ben's elbows are way too high, allowing his opponent to scoop underneath them so he can easily maintain back control and not have to worry about Ben shrimping to escape. Ben makes the right call by turning to his side to escape back mount where you can't do anything, but has his hands way too occupied to prevent the next attack. His opponent clearly wants to take mount because he's angled his hook in a way where he can start to climb on Ben's legs, and he's already detached his hips from Ben's back. This allows him to create enough space where he can easily start to climb on top of Ben, and since Ben didn't go to his knees, mount was the best option to take. Now it's unfortunate that most Ben matches go pretty much the same way. He gets mounted or has his back taken, and the rest of the round is trying to survive from these bad positions until a miracle can happen. And that's why I always get so happy to see when those miracles do happen. Ben was able to escape mount by rolling, and now he's in his opponent's guard trying to fight off a collar choke. Most people try and hand fight from here because they want to strip the hands off of their collar. That's not for Ben. Instead, he dives headfirst into the fire. His favorite way to strip the grips is by pressing in with his forehead. The more he can bring his head in, the larger the gap that he's opening. Ben's right arm is in jeopardy if his opponent's able to free his hips so he can transition to the armbar. Instead, his opponent decides to go for the sweep, and he snaps us back to reality that Ben is forced to defend himself from a bad position. This being Ben's last match of the day probably tired him out quite a bit. Especially with how sore his arm must have been, I can see why he was starting to give up a little bit. Unfortunately for him, his opponent was still putting the pace on him. And sitting in the front head is a terrible spot to try and rest. He's at constant risk of submissions like the Anaconda Darson Guillotine, or having his opponent circle around to his back. But his opponent has had enough time trying to mess around with this squirrely bugger. He goes to mount, and he sets up the fateful armbar on the other arm for Ben. Thankfully, he tapped this time. So Ben may have lost this match, but he was still able to win a medal because the other opponent he was supposed to go against didn't think it'd be good for his health to take on Ben.
Now, it's no secret that I love my sponsors' gear that I get from xmartial.com to provide me rash guards like this. But they also sponsor other creators such as Jedi Does Jiu-Jitsu and Jordan Teaches Jiu-Jitsu. And if you want to see more free content from us, check out their TikTok page right here, and check out their website as well, where they're doing free giveaways, their Halloween collection is now live, and new horror designs were just added for Halloween.